Hey, welcome to Democracy Brewing Podcast. I'm Tom Costanzo, and I have a special guest. I got Suzanne Shkreli with me today. How you doing, Susie?
Hi Tom. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing
Thanks
great.
For having me.
Hey, thanks for coming. It was a long drive. I'm glad you made it here,
Me
and
too.
really appreciate you being here.
I'm so happy to be here. It's such a cool spot, and it smells amazing in here. I can't wait to try the pizza.
The food is amazing, and the beer is amazing, and so definitely check it out
I will.
when you get a chance. But basically, Susie just got here, and we're just jumping into it. So give her props for that right out of the gate. So I got a lot of questions to ask you.
I'm excited. Let's get into it.
So let's get into it. So you're first generation in this country.
Yes.
Your parents immigrated from Albania with you. You have siblings?
I do. So yes, my parents are ethnically Albanian from modern-day Montenegro, formerly known as the former Yugoslavia, and they fled authoritarianism. They came to this country in the late 1960s, and I have 3 siblings. I have an older sister, a twin brother, and a younger brother.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you came to America?
Well, I was born here.
You were born here?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So my parents immigrated, and I was born here. So I was born in 1980s. And
Okay.
I was born in Livonia, raised in Farmington Hills, then Clarkston, and now I live in Birmingham.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So your family had a restaurant.
Yes.
And you work there.
Yes.
So tell me about that. Like, just coming to, working in a restaurant, I'm sure you've learned a lot about people and about just getting along and customer service, servant leadership. And so what did you do in the restaurant?
Yeah, so my parents still have the restaurant. My dad is 70 years old, and he had a dual kidney transplant in 2023, and he's doing so good. Thank God. He actually had his surgery at U of M. And so although like most of my family went to MSU, I'm a little bit, I feel like a Wolverine at heart because I took such good care of my dad.
Yeah.
And so, it's called Copperstones of Waterford. It's a family style diner, which is kind of like a thing of the past these days. But yeah, I grew up alongside my siblings and my parents, working hard, working, in the front of the house, in the back of the house, cleaning tables, talking to customers, then becoming a waitress. And so really the value of $1 is something that I learned to appreciate as a kid, just because I saw how hard my parents worked and still work to this day. And it really, customer service is kind of the forefront of everything I do. And I've taken that in every role that I've had, wanting to give good service with a smile and to really get to yes, and no matter really what the issue was in all of my various capacities. And so, I think as Secretary of State, something I can bring to this office is that methodology, that mentality of wanting to make sure that the lives of Michiganders are made easier through, digital driver's license or expanding walk-in hours for everyday folks. And it's something I'm proud of. Look, I was raised in a restaurant where the customer's always right, and so I was laughing because I went to go get a coffee one day, and I was like, there's a line around this building. I'm going to go get my coffee. And they're going to see me waiting, and they're going to serve me first, And no, I sat there, and they were doing like all these mobile orders while I was sitting waiting for the coffee, and I was cracking up like some guy in his underwear is getting his coffee before me, And so I do think that there's as great as DoorDash is, as great as mobile ordering is, there's an element of customer service being lost in that, and I kind of want to bring that back to the Secretary of State's office. The appointments process is great, but it's a state office. It's public facing. If you need to walk in and get what you need, you should be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I want to ask you about the mobility units and I know you have some definitely some initiatives around that for sure. So let's talk about. I'm curious about your hockey background because I'm a huge hockey fan, and so tell me about that. Tell me about when you started. You were like 5, right? When you started hockey. How did you get into hockey?
Well, it's so funny because being first generation American of Albanian origin, there weren't a lot of girls playing ice hockey at the time.
Yeah.
And my brother, for some reason, my dad's cousins were interested in hockey and their sons played. And so my mom was like, Paul, for my twin brother, you're going to play hockey, and Susie, you're going to be a figure skater. I was like, okay, so I tried it, and it was not about it. And no shade on figure skating because it's a beautiful sport, and I'm enjoying watching it during the Olympics every 4 years. But I needed a little bit more action, so I picked up a hockey stick. And Tom, I was a terror. I had a little green helmet.
Really?
And I would fight in the corners, and I just was super scrappy. It's part of kind of who I am, even to this.
Yeah.
But I have a funny story. There was this kid named Chris Anderson. He's a captain of our team, and he really was a jerk to me because I was the only girl on the team until one time he got in a fight in the corner, and I was alongside of him. like throwing haymakers, and after that we were the best of friends, and I got the respect of the team. But yeah, I played competitive ice hockey from age 5 to, well, it wasn't competitive at 5, but through high school. Yeah,
So
girls travel
what
hockey.
position?
I played left wing, and then sometimes I'd be a center.
Are you lefty?
I'm a righty.
You're righty.
But when I play hockey and I golf, I'm lefty.
So that's a threat, being a left winger
Right.
and being a
That's
righty.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I grew up just loving Detroit sports, loving watching hockey, something that me and my dad did. I remember, the first year that the Red Wings were making the push in the playoffs. I don't think I understood at the time, because I was pretty young, that, that it was a best of 7 series. And I remember sitting in front of the table, like crying, because we had lost, I think, game 5. And my dad was like, "What's wrong, baby?" I was like, "Oh, we're out. He's like, "No, we have 2 more games." We ended up winning the cup that year. And I also remember telling him that I wanted to marry Steve Yzerman, but he told me that Stevie was already married and had kids, and I had to look elsewhere. So he was my hero. Steve Yzerman was one of my heroes. So,
That's great.
Yeah.
So I just think, as far as what you learned from playing hockey. So you were on a team with boys and girls. Yeah?
Yes.
And that was all the way through high school, or did it?
No, so I played with boys until about checking.
Okay.
And then I switched to girls travel hockey.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you carried what you learned
I think
into your professional career.
Sure.
So what have you taken with you from your experience as a hockey player for all those years?
Absolutely. And I think it's similar even to like what you were saying earlier about the restaurant. It's like, to this day, I jokingly tell people the hardest job I ever had was working at my dad's restaurant, being a waitress, because people get worked up about their food, So navigating different personalities and having to be in tough situations in that situation. I don't think a lot of people in the service industry get enough credit with what type of skills you have to develop, dealing with customers that are not happy. And it's the same thing in government and service as well. I think team sports especially, really teaches you when to lead, when to fall back, and what it means to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And so I've always had that team mentality. And I think hockey and growing up in a family restaurant where we're a team is definitely something that those were the lessons that taught me. I think what really has led me to have what has been a successful career so far.
We'll get into that, being a prosecutor and being an advocate for children and child abuse and all of that. I'm really interested in hearing about that. But when was servant leadership something that you wanted to pursue?
Looking back, it's something that always spoke to me as a kid. Like I never, had an idea. My mom was like, "Oh, you should be a nurse because you care for others," But I didn't really like to be around blood and stuff like that. But I do know that I always had kind of an inkling towards justice, like whether it was a movie or art. It was something that I responded well to, and so I pursued education with the understanding that it was going to be an effective tool for me, and no matter what field I ended up jumping into. But it was when I was an assistant prosecutor doing my internship, before I graduated, that I knew I wanted to be a prosecutor. But I always had the heart for helping others. It's something that just kind of filled my cup. It still does to this day.
And so let's talk about, so you graduated college in 3 years.
Yes.
So you're like an overachiever, big over. So it was just, you obviously, so 3 years, that's amazing. So tell me about that.
You know what? I had just a mission to get to work. Yeah, I really was like, I want to finish my undergrad and start, contributing to society. And because, when you're in school, you just feel like you're in there forever. It's never going to end. And then looking back, you're like, what's the rush? Once you start working, you can never stop it. But yeah, I was just determined to really get my education done and start working. And yeah, I took summer classes and I went in with a few credits as well. And so I was excited to become an attorney and then eventually serve as a prosecutor.
So what led you into specifically where you ended up being a prosecutor, specifically with child abuse cases and protecting children, getting children the justice that they deserve?
Yes, thank you. So when I was in law school, you're encouraged to do a bunch of, extracurriculars and internships to see where your heart lands. And I had decided there was 2 options. There was a bigger firm and a prosecutorial, internship. And I was supposed to go with the big firm, and something fell through on their end or what have you, and I committed to the prosecutor's office. And then they came back and said, "Oh, this firm, we screwed up. We want you." And I was like, you know what? I committed to the prosecutor's office. I'm going there to see what it's about.
Sure. Yeah.
And day one, I just knew it was where I needed to be. There was a lot going on. I was in the Warren District Court. It was fun, exciting, fast paced. I really liked the people that I was working with. And to be honest, like there was something that was so special about standing in the courtroom as a first generation American saying, I'm Suzanne Shkreli on behalf of the people. Something that really gave me immense pride. It's something that I give a lot of reverence to and respect to, because you are in a position of authority, and your job is to advocate on behalf of someone who's in the system that has had something happen to them. And so, it wasn't until I served in that role for nearly 8 years, and half of that time I became a special victims prosecutor for children. And so I had already known that I wanted to do that work, because it's why else do you become a prosecutor but to protect the most vulnerable in our society? And I said, if these cases are happening, which unfortunately they do, I want to be the one that's standing on their behalf, because I know no one's going to give it more of their heart and more of their all than me. And so when the opportunity came to serve in that role, I jumped in, and it's to this day, it's been one of the best experiences in my career to be able to deliver justice for those children and families. And so I'm used to taking on the worst kind of threats in the courtroom, and kind of liking it back to why I'm running for Secretary of State. Like, we know that threats are coming in a different way as it relates to our elections, and we need somebody tough to stand up, to push back against Trump, Vance, whoever's coming for our voice and our vote.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about that, about the threats that are specifically targeting Michigan, where his administration is already targeting Detroit as far as elections, having ICE stationed at the polling places. And so what are your thoughts on, this is a serious threat, so what are your thoughts on protecting the voters and the vote in Michigan?
Absolutely. So part of my experience in state government, because after I served as a prosecutor, recently here I served as a Michigan Lottery Commissioner, where I saw 8 regional offices with over 200 employees. It's a statewide office that's frontward public facing.
Yeah.
I also served as a regulator and juvenile justice reform director at DHHS, as well as the child advocate for the state. And then I also served as deputy legal counsel to the governor for the first 2 years of the administration, where we unfortunately saw many an emergency. And I had overseen emergency management as deputy legal counsel, from COVID to the 500-year flooding incident, to the Midland Dam breaking, to the meeting of the electors in 2020, which is something I got to work on. And so we had worked hand in hand with Michigan State Police and the Secretary of State's office and the Board of Elections to ensure that the governor's constitutional obligation of delivering those electors was going to happen, because we were receiving threats. I mean, the rise in extremism at that time and since has only gotten worse. And so we had worked hand in hand with Michigan State Police and Secretary of State to really make sure we were ready for what was going to come that day. And I have a vivid memory of really the Capitol just being populated with blue uniforms from Michigan State Police. So we just didn't know what was going to happen. And thankfully, because of our preparation, the governor was able to deliver on her constitutional obligation. And we've seen the president continue to undermine the 2020 elections. It's part of his rhetoric playbook. He knows he's losing, and so he continues to plant the seeds of division and continues to undermine our elections, even though time and time again, the courts have held, our clerks have held. There was a Republican-led review of the elections here in Michigan. Ed McBroom himself said that there was no widespread voter fraud. And still, he continues to do this because he is serving what his agenda, which is, I know I'm losing. And we saw what happened in Texas a couple weeks ago. It was R plus 16, 17 that flipped over. And so he sees the writing on the wall. But when it comes to how are we protecting, and it's not just protecting the vote, but how are we protecting our election workers? Clerks,
Right.
There's been such a decrease in people even wanting to volunteer at elections because of the continuing undermining of our systems. And when the president is knowingly making false statements about the integrity of our elections, he's really putting, our neighbors at risk, our clerks at risk, because that's who's running our elections, right? Those are the volunteers that make the wheel of democracy go. And so my emergency management experience with my state executive experience, as well as my prosecutorial experience, I think puts me in the perfect position for a time like this to be able to respond to what's happening. From day one, tabletop exercises with our clerks and law enforcement, getting everybody familiar with the State Emergency Operations Center and what that means from an emergency management perspective, local emergency management perspective, leaning in on stakeholders in the voter voter spaces, voters on politicians, groups like that to be ready to respond. And then working with the Attorney General's office and getting ready with a legal playbook about what's going to happen, right? From defensive motions to injunctions. I mean, there's been some ridiculous rulings that have happened here recently. The Supreme Court held that federal, candidates can challenge a state's election law if it touches on their race. And so what we can anticipate is that the federal government and some of these candidates can challenge our, things that we voted on, right? From no reason absentee to 9-day early voting. And so we have to be in a position of legal strength. I'm the only lawyer in this race. I'm the only one that has really been in the neck of government, having been in the executive office, understanding how resources can move in a time like this. I've done tabletop exercises before, and I've worked with the Attorney General's office on really significant litigation strategy, from the Flint water crisis to some other really complicated things. And so we need to be ready. We can't be responsive. We have to be preemptive. And I think I'm in the best position to do that.
You mentioned, having your prosecutor background, being a lawyer. So those are some levers that you can definitely pull.
Yes.
Because of your background, plus your scrappy background, being a hockey, just all of that seems like that would be very important to push back against what's coming.
Yes.
So, related to that, as far as differentiating you from the candidates, Gilchrist and Barbarums in the race, what are your differentiators? I know obviously on the legal front, you've got that. What else? Like what else do you have that you think makes you, a better candidate than?
For sure. I think the emergency management preparedness experience puts me at a unique position, because I think we need more than what the past has called for. We need. I'm telling people we need to send a prosecutor to defend our votes and our Constitution. So couple that with the emergency management experience that I just discussed, from the meeting of the electors to running COVID and tabletop exercises, really getting that framework set up and ready to go day one, I think I'm well prepared to do. And then I'm the only candidate in this race that has actually overseen a statewide office that's anything like the Secretary of State's office. The Michigan Lottery has 8 regional offices, over 200 employees. I am the only one that's got the state executive level management. And I think my relationships already in state government, my relationships with the assistant attorney generals that are going to be working on our cases, there's really no time to get to know each other. I already know them. We're already ready to go. And so I think that puts me at a unique position, and that this position calls for something more in this time.
What are your thoughts on the authoritarianism that's rising in this country, especially with your background and your parents immigrating from the former Yugoslavia? And what do they think about America now, what they're seeing, and from when they immigrated here? And what are your thoughts too? And like what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, my parents led authoritarianism in the former Yugoslavia in search of a better life, in search of the American dream. And myself and my family are so grateful for the opportunity that this state and this country has offered us. And growing up, I remember my dad specifically saying to my siblings and I, go to school, because he didn't get the opportunity to pursue education, because he had come with his siblings, and then his parents came, and so he had to kind of take care of the family. So first and foremost, I believe that this is the greatest country in the world. Even with all the stuff that we got going on, we have to fight for this country. And it's disappointing and unfathomable to see the same type of authoritarianism, from disregarding Supreme Court decisions to continuous federal overreach happening here in this country, which is what my parents fled from. And so it's disappointing, but I think that we have to really band together to resist in the ways that we can every single day in our small corners of the world. That's supporting candidates, that's coming to the convention to make sure that we're nominating our strongest candidate to beat our opponents on the other side of this, which is Monica Yatuma, who's a Moms for Liberty candidate, for example, who really is peddling in the worst kind of election denialism, and really just doing what you can in your corner of the world, not getting discouraged, because we will get through this. I think we have to have hope when we're having these discussions, because I'm traveling all over the state, and the sentiment is the same. People are scared, and it's okay to be scared, but we have to be scared to action, and that's what I'm doing running. I'm scared to action, to run, to protect our Constitution, our vote, and to make sure that we have the strongest candidate going into November. And then I failed to mention this as well, is, our campaign has had so much momentum. People have been calling me and meeting folks around the state. They're donating. I mean, we raised over $300,000 in a very short amount of time. None of that was from a corporate PAC. None of that was from a utility company. I signed the League of Conservation Voters Pledge. So our campaign also has the mechanisms to make sure that in the general, we're not getting dragged across the finish line, that we're going to stand on our own 2 feet and be the strongest candidate and really take it to them in November, because that's what we're going to need, is a strong candidate who can fundraise, one who's disciplined, one who wants to be here and actually wants to do this work and isn't looking at this job as a stepping stone or consolation prize. And I think I'm the best fit for this moment.
Give me 3 things you're hopeful for.
That's a good. Well, I'm hopeful for a trifecta in November. I'm hopeful for a Stanley Cup victory this year.
Yep.
And I'm hopeful that our country really can get back to a little bit more civility. And I think that I'm a good candidate in order to do that. We could disagree on a lot of stuff, but I'm kind of tired of the name calling, tired of just the decline that we've seen our civil society kind of engage in. And I'd like to see our elected officials be held to the standard that we used to hold them to, and that we're fighting how we can, but with respect and civility. So we're leaving a good message for the next generation.
Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
Where can people find out about your campaign and support you?
Absolutely. So
how can we help?
Yeah, thank you so much. So SuzanneShkreli.com is my website. And then if you want to come and vote for me at the convention, because this is a race that's going to be determined at the convention.
April
19th. It needs you to register with the Michigan Democratic Party by March 20th. You can go to vote.SuzanneShkreli.com and commit to vote for me there. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hey, thanks, Susie. We'll have all the links in the show notes, so please take a look at those. And hey, thanks, Susie.
Thank you. This was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thanks. Take care.
You too.